everybody. King of all wrestling media, Gene Jackson here, joined once again by my good buddy Bob Anderson. And if you made it through episode 1 of the Fury Hour and then watched the Fury Cast and you're back for episode 2, thank you. We appreciate it. You're a warrior, and we hope to make it worth your while to have some fun talking about good old Herb Abrams UWF. But before we get into all that, at the end of last episode, Bob left us with what we call our palate cleanser, where we wash away the bad taste that the Fury Hour leaves in our mouth inevitably, and we try to watch some quote-unquote good wrestling. So tell us about the match that you left us with, and if you didn't catch it, it's in the description of the Fury Cast video. It's also in the playlist on YouTube for the Fury Cast. So there's a couple different ways you can find it, but it's there. So check it out.
I suggest that everybody check out the Killer Khan, Terry Gordy, Texas Death Match from World Class. If you didn't watch it, we'll discuss it for a minute here. If you did, I hope you enjoyed it. Nice, bloody, feud-ending match between the two. I figure the first thing everyone's going to see is Kerry Von Erich as a special guest referee wearing the belly shirt and the blue jeans. I guess that Shawn Michaels took his terrible referee outfit choices from that match. I don't know. Maybe Stevie Richards took his gear from it too.
We can only assume.
Yeah. Anyway, great match. I mean, this is what, we talked last week about how we don't really care for modern wrestling, and it always kills me that, guys now that are in a blood feud immediately start their match by locking up and going into a headlock. These two guys just immediately start beating the fuck out of each other, brawling all over the ring. I don't think you see an actual wrestling move till 7 minutes into the match, and then it's Killer Khan with a backbreaker. Both guys are bleeding all over the fucking place, busting each other into the ring posts and the guardrail, and just nasty ass match. Biting, kicking, punching. And like I said, that's what kills me with modern wrestling. They're grabbing headlocks and doing leapfrogs. And
not to get on a tangent, but I pitched a big fit here a while back. A local promotion that I used to work for had this big blood feud. They built to a casket match, which I hate on local shows because, okay, The Undertaker had a casket match because he's a fucking Undertaker, but just two indie guys. Why are we having a casket match? But they had this big, long, drawn-out feud, and they put these promos on Facebook, cussing each other, literally, because, you cuss in promos now, apparently, about how they were, I'm going to put you in that casket, I'm going to kill you. And so curiosity got the better of me, and I watched the match, and the first guy comes out, and he goes through all his little poses, because they've all got their entrance that they're copying from the video games and shit. And he's standing in the middle of the ring with two other people and a valet and a chair that the one guy carries around as a gimmick. His mortal enemy comes out, and he comes down the aisle, and he could just charge the ring, and they could just go to fight in this casket match. But no, he gets up on the side of the ring. He does all his little poses as his hated, his blood feud hated rival is literally 2 feet from him, along with two other guys, along with a chair, along with the valet. He goes through all the poses. They get out. The referee checks them to make sure they don't have weapons for this casket match. Ding, ding. They walk to the center of the ring. They kind of talk shit for a minute and then lock up, like you said, side headlock, shoot them off. And my head was literally about to explode. But anyway, not to digress, but I just to illustrate what you're referring to, because
I don't even have that whole the Ring of Honor, the Young Buck style. I'm not even against it. If that's your thing, that's cool. Sometimes I even enjoy it, but not in a fucking blood feud. If two guys hate each other so much they have to have a Texas death match, I don't need to see that shit. Yeah. But then, so these two guys, Gordy's bleeding all over the place 2 minutes in. Then Killer Khan gets busted open to the point that every time he hits the mat, he's leaving pools everywhere. And I'm not a death match guy by any stretch of the imagination. But back in the day, the old school blood feuds were good shit. Then you got Akbar all over the place, and he was one of my favorite managers back in the day. Then they're fighting over the Oriental Spike, which one of my favorite lost moves that no one uses anymore. I mean, what's more simple than jamming your thumb in a guy's fucking windpipe? And anyway, that was the whole point of their feud, was that Khan had taught him the spike. He started using it, then they fell out. So they're each trying to get each other a mat. Just good shit.
I always thought Duggan should use the Oriental Spike at some point just to incorporate his,
right.
And then,
that would have been awesome for a heel turn.
Yeah.
Then we do have the UWF. I don't know what the item look like. Kind of comes together because this is a Texas death match that ends in a freaking schmoz, which seems like something Herb would have booked. Missing Link runs in, who I always thought was the shits. He runs in, then Kerry fights him off. Then Kerry and Gordy tease the Freebirds and the Von Erichs be buddies, and then they won't, but then they shake hands and the crowd goes fucking ape shit. So,
but somehow it worked. I mean, there was so much craziness around it, and the action delivered, and it was what you would expect out of two guys like those two that wanted to kill each other. You could almost forgive the finish, really.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, I remember watching it as a kid on ESPN, and I don't remember being like, "Oh man, that sucked. That was stupid." Like you were just blown away. Like, two guys like to kill each other.
I mean, a recommended match with Killer Khan, those are few and far between.
No doubt. What would you even... Could a person even use the Oriental Spike at this point? I mean, they couldn't call it that. I mean, what would you even name it now?
I mean, it was also referred to as the Asiatic Spike. I don't know if that would be as offensive as Oriental Spike would be these days, but Japanese Spike, I don't know. You could figure out something and just call it the Spike.
You have to submit it, to the board of people who make those decisions of what's acceptable and not acceptable, and figure out what you could call it.
And Umaga almost used it. It could be the Samoan Spike now.
There you go.
He never used it as a submission. He just jammed motherfuckers in the throat with it. But I don't know. Anyway, I thought it was a great match. I hope people enjoyed it. It's definitely better than anything that was on the first episode of the Fury Hour. I mean,
spoiler, it may be better than anything on the second episode. We'll get there.
You think?
I don't know, man, because we got a big main event coming up. I don't want to skip ahead, but it's going to be pretty hard to outdo Portland's own Billy Jack Haynes taking on Colonel DeBeers from South Africa. I don't know. It's going to be a wild one. But as we ease into the Fury Hour, when Herb Abrams and Bruno Sammartino came on our screen, the first thing out of Herb Abrams' mouth was, "There's only two words to describe last week's episode, Bruno: wild and woolly." If you had to pick two words to describe last week's episode, Bob, what would they be? Would it be wild and woolly, or
suicide and inducing?
And Bruno, his two words were absolutely great. It was an absolutely great show, a lot of action. So Bruno's credibility was here when we started. It's inched down to here. We'll see where it ends up by the time this series is over with. But hey, got to make that money, brother. But come on, Bruno. Absolutely great. I mean, he could have been like, it was tolerable, but I've seen worse matches on the Wrestling Challenge, but our first match. Well, I tell you what. Hold up. Before we get to the first match, let's address a couple of things from last week's episode. First being, we referred to the fact that Dangerous Dan Spivey of Skyscraper fame, of one half of the U.S. Express with Mike Rotundo in the WWF fame, All Japan Pro Wrestling often teaming with Stan the Lariat Hansen fame, and way further down the road, Waylon Mercy infamy. Maybe fame. I don't know. Depends on who you ask. But here he is in all his glory, coming to the ring, looking like he came straight out of Brutus Beefcake's closet. Well, I guess that don't sound right. Looking like Rob Brutus Beefcake. I'm not implying that Brutus Beefcake's in the closet. I don't believe Linda Hogan's, accusations against him and the Hulkster brother. I just don't believe it. But there he is. Look at him. He's got the zebra tights on. He's got leather what do you call them, tassels down the side. He's got big red, very red boots. So that happened. And before we move on to our opening match, you was quite enthralled of all the things on the show last week. Besides David Sammartino and Cactus Jack, you were most enthralled about a promo from Dr. Death Steve Williams. So we're going to lead off. We're going to show you that full 53 seconds of Dr. Death goodness, and you can decide, folks, is this an all-natural promo, or was there a little help? Let's take a look.
Wow, the world's turning! The yin's up, the stock's up, and you know what else is up? UWF! And I'm telling you it's up! There's a lot of great athletes, but you're looking at the greatest. A four-time All-American at the University of Oklahoma. Football, wrestling. Hey, I beat them all. I've thrown them out in bars. Let me tell you, bars. We're not going to talk about bars now. We're talking about pro wrestling. Pro wrestling's all about it right now. UWF, I'm here in Los Angeles. They call it the La La Land. I don't call it the La La Land. I call it where all pro athletes come. You got the Raiders. You got San Diego Chargers. And you got the world champion 49ers. Well, you're looking at another world champion right here. UWF. Don't forget it. The Universal Wrestling Federation returns to the...
And you're right. I just realized there are two different promos. There's that one, and then there is another one. He's in that same shirt on the same background, but he's yelling about Orndorff and Sammartino and Blair and all these different people. So, yes, they're very similar, but there are two different ones. So, I stand corrected, but I believe you have a very strong case that perhaps, maybe. But anyway, moving on to the opening match of this week's Fury Hour. The unpredictable Cactus Jack takes on Davey Meltzer, a.k.a. Adam Michaels. And, Cactus Jack's matches seem to stand out on here as being, some of the better stuff that we see. It was said in the book that Bill Anderson said that Herb Abrams asked him to bring the worst wrestler from his school, and he was going to make him Davey Meltzer. And so Bill Anderson deemed Adam Michaels the worst wrestler from his school. And as these matches continue to unfold, that's probably it's probably accurate, because holy cow, there's some rough spots in this match. Cactus tries to do the spot where he shoots the guy in the corner, and he hits the ropes, and they come out of the corner, and he does the bulldog, or not really even a bulldog, but just runs their head into the mat. And I guess that guy's never seen that spot before. He took one step out and stopped. So Cactus had to take a couple steps back, grab him, and bring him with him. And that just stood out like a sore thumb.
That was literally my only note for the match was, holy shit, that jobber fucked up the corner whip bulldog.
The other one was, I don't know if you noticed it, he threw the worst drop kick I think I've ever seen in my life at one point in that match.
Must have missed that.
Yeah, it was terrible. But anyway, Cactus hits him with the elbow to the floor and then picks him up, throws him in the ring, and pins him. Which strangely isn't something you've seen Cactus do a lot. He tried to work that elbow in against jobbers, but he usually didn't follow it right up by just tossing him in the ring and pinning him. So that kind of stood out to me. But yeah, Davey Meltzer is definitely probably the worst. I don't know who else Bill Anderson had at his school, but he's got to be the worst. And these squash matches, and you can tell me if you've noticed this, but there's nothing competitive about them. They are like punching bags that are able to just stand back up. It's just an exhibition of moves for the most part. And that's kind of what makes some of this repetitive, because most of these guys have their handful of moves that they do. And so you're just kind of seeing them week in and week out.
Yeah, so Patterson got some offense last week, but otherwise he was the only one.
There's a couple of guys that get a little bit offense in. I'm sure Patterson is strictly because of his size, but Like this guy, Scott Cole, which ironically I used to work with a guy called Scott Cole. So when this popped up on the screen, is coming up next, Dangerous Dan Scivey versus Scott Cole. I'm like, wow, surely that's not the guy from the car lot. But then it wasn't. But because I think the Scott Cole that I know would have got a little more offense in than this guy did. He had a little bit of self-respect at least. But so the match starts off with him ripping up a B. Brian Blair T-shirt. So that reminds us he's in a feud.
Wait, are we on the Spivey match now?
Are we? Am I out of sync?
No, that's fine. I just want to point out last week he fucking was wearing Brutus Beefcake's outfit. This week he looks like he fucking hunted, skinned, and wore the Kool-Aid Man for a fucking outfit. So
yeah, it's all red today, folks. And he makes his way down. That's the look on his face. At one point in the match, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was Herb that said, it's like he was, what was the phrase? It's like he's programmed from basically saying he was a robot, but he had a funny way of putting it, like he was programmed from something another. But again, another exhibition of moves, a pretty sweet sidewalk slam that looked just brutal.
Until the greatest referee fuck up in history.
Yes, so I asked myself, it was all the way into the next match, and it hit me. I'm like, did I see him count when Spivey wasn't covering that guy? And I'm like, no, that couldn't have been it. And I didn't want to go back and check. And then today, the first thing he says, like, please tell me you got a clip of him counting when nobody was covering. I was like, crap. Okay, that did happen.
So for those of you that haven't watched yet, go back and watch this. Spivey hits a gut wrench suplex, drops the jobber, goes down to pin him. The ref counts 1. Spivey stands up. The referee looks at him, then goes back and continues to count 2 and 3. Spivey looks at the referee like he's a complete fucking idiot, picks the jobber up, sandbags him on a power bomb, gets back down, and they count the 3 again. The bell has already rung once, so they don't ring it again. Then Spivey holds his arms up and walks out of the ring. Most fucked up ending I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, they clearly didn't believe in any editing on the Fury Hour because it's all there. Or if there was worse stuff that did get it edited out, I can't even imagine what it would have been.
Not a clue.
But no, you're right, because it's not like, a lot of times wrestlers will just raise up off of somebody. Dan Spivey was standing on his 2 feet as the ref looked at him and then went 2. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
And then the bell rings. And then Spivey picks him up, power bombs him. They count again, and they don't ring the fucking bell again.
Yeah, like the bell ringer's like, I only get paid once per match, brother. Like, you're on your own. So
I'm getting my fucking hot dog and my handshake one way or the other. Right, ringing this sumbitch again.
If I ring it again, I'm getting another PO, son. So moving right along, the next match is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff taking on the Black Knight.
Wearing a red mask.
Wearing a very red mask. And I don't think Herb likes the Black Knight because he wasn't real. He makes mention of him needing to spend more time in the gym and things like that. And then he pulled off this move. Take a look as our friend the Black Knight attempts a sunset flip over the ropes.
Much of size, you can look at the difference in size here, but look at who's in better condition. Look at Orndorff's body and look at sunset flip now. He went for a sunset flip and he missed. Now what's he going to do? I think he wanted to get him for a backbreaker.
You can even hear the laughter in Bruno's voice.
He missed. I'm like, well, he didn't exactly miss. He just didn't pull it off. But he landed, just not a sunset flip.
Did you catch before that spot? You were talking about Herb shitting on the Black Knight needing to go to the gym. Yeah. Did you catch Bruno saying that Orndorff was a little leaner than I remember him?
Yes.
So did Bruno just insinuate that Orndorff's cycling off the steroids? I mean,
it seemed to be, which is kind of funny because Bruno seems to be going out of his way to not insult anybody, especially because of the shit Herb's saying. But yeah, that right there was like, well, Bruno, take it easy.
I know Bruno was like very anti fucking Hogan and the steroid guys. So
that's true. I mean, he did episodes of Donahue griping about steroids. So that could have been a little shot at
Yeah,
Mr. Wonderful there. And then, of
I
course,
wrote the exact quote was, "He's a lot leaner than I remember him." I was like, "Oh shit!"
and then Herb, trying to think of something clever to say to put Orndorff over, says, "Orndorff has total concentration." It's like, what does that even mean? Like, once again, we see the greatest pile driver in the business puts another one away, and Mr. Wonderful is victorious over the Black Knight.
The Knight's probably lucky Orndorff didn't beat the shit out of him on that sunset flip. But
oh yeah, because when that happened, I was like, all right, this is fixing to turn around, and Orndorff is just fixing to beat the hell out of him, and we're going to go straight to a pile driver. But no, he endured because, like I say, these matches are all, even for squash matches, are super freaking long. So we've got a lot of time to kill here. We don't want to put extra work on the main event, so we got to make sure all these squashes go the distance. So next we're about to go to the break, and so before you get to the commercial, which if you're watching the ones that we put out, I've edited out all the commercials, and there's a couple little snippets that sneak in from time to time. But I'm leaving in some of the UWF commercials. I'm cutting them out, or you would see that Brian Blair t-shirt commercial like 5 times every episode, and it wears thin pretty quick. But watch this one that we're about to show. This little series right here, you're going to see a Captain Lou promo, a Billy Jack Haynes promo, and I want to know if you catch something odd about Billy Jack Haynes' promo here that he repeats later on down the line. And we'll hear B. Brian Blair peddling the t-shirts at least once. We got to at least show it once on the podcast, and then we'll move past it. But see if you can catch Captain Lou reading cue cards for Feats, Fist, and Fury. He's very subtle about it, but if you have an eagle eye, you may just catch it.
Hey out there, wrestling fans, I'm Captain Lou Albano, and I've been involved in professional wrestling for well over 30 years. And I'm going to tell you where you can find the best in professional wrestling. That's the UWF. And where do you find that? On Feet, Fist, and Fury. Only on Sports Channel America. Woo! I feel so good, so proud, so fine, and so elated. Captain Lou, baby, and I'm talking to you. Woo! See?
You know, I'm in the best shape of my life right now, and I gotta be. I've wrestled all over the world, all over the globe. But now I come to the UWF, the Universal Wrestling Federation. I still love you little kids, but Billy Jack Haynes goes in that ring to win. And I know the toughest competition is here in the UWF, so no matter what goes down, the full Nelson's ready, and I come in that ring to do one thing, and to fight and win.
Oh yeah, everybody's buzzing over the UWF merchandise. Check out these caps. Aren't they cool? Check out this shirt. I like it. Oh yeah, look at the biceps on Mr. Wonderful. They're bulging. And look at... Oh no, Ninja King Spivey? I don't think I'd get this one. Order now, 702 Washington Street, Marina...
Okay, so the things that stand out to me are, one, Captain Lou sounded like Ric Flair on his deathbed with emphysema. Woo! Woo!
Well, he was fucking blown up. What do you want?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he said 4 lines. Well, sure, he did more than 4 lines before he said his 4 lines. Did anything stand out to you about Billy Jack's promo?
He loves them little kids.
Okay. Well, besides that, we established that last week, that he still loves little kids.
And he's in the best shape of his life.
There's another thing. Well, yeah. The thing that caught my attention, he's here to do one thing. That's fight and win.
It's 2 things.
Okay. Kind of like the old Dude Love promo from back in the day that Foley makes fun of in his book. But yeah. And we'll say that anyway. And then that B. Brian Blair merch commercial, which they eventually do another one. It's almost exactly the same, but it's a little different. Any other things to touch on about that before we move on? These random ass Captain Lou
has one of those shirts. We want it.
Oh my God. If I could get one of those Spivey shirts, even the Blair or the Mr. Wonderful, who looks like...
That Wonderful shirt is terrible.
It is, but it's the closest he's ever come to looking like that LJN figure that looked like a Mr. Universe.
That's true.
Hulk Hogan's arms were this big around on his LJN doll. He looked anorexic. He looked worse than Hulk Hogan when he got off the steroids in 1994 or 1993 when he went to New Japan. Meanwhile, the Orndorff figure stands a foot taller in as far as how it looks in, scaled, and he's just ripped more. I mean, he was ripped more than Warrior or Kerry Von Erich on that action figure. Like, he had to have loved that because he looked like the most ripped dude to ever set foot in a wrestling ring on that doll. It's tremendous. So next match is our friend from earlier in the promo, Dr. Death Steve Williams. Now, he is going to make a liar out of me because I said earlier that these guys kind of have their certain moveset and all the matches kind of look the same. But Dr. Death threw us some curves in this match. Do you want to comment it before we see it or after we see it?
Before, I had a problem with this match.
Okay.
If Dr. Death is supposed to be a heel, why was the jobber jumping him? Like, he's supposed to be your top heel, and the fucking jobber, using Herb from last week, Pearl Harbored him.
In fairness to Herb, though, like, that was regular vernacular for Gorilla Monsoon. Like,
I know.
Pearl Harbor job coming up here from, but I mean, it usually wasn't an Asian person doing it when he said it, but.
And then furthermore, Bruno advocates it, and he's supposed to be the babyface announcer. Like, we know this whole show's a shit show, but it didn't make sense to me. Like, Doc's the bad guy. Why is he getting beaten on from behind by jobbers? And why, of all people, is Bruno going, oh, that's probably the only way he's going to win, which may be true, but still.
Yeah, like, that's one of my big issues with this show, and we're going to go a little more into this in the main event. But, like, in the 80s and 90s, even when the wrestling end of things wasn't always great on things like this, the psychology, at least the booking and the psychology, was usually pretty solid. They tried to make it make sense, like, say, from a psychology standpoint. And like you said, having the jobber jump the guy you're trying to make be the lead heel made no sense. I mean, obviously he failed miserably at it, right. But still, you feel like anything Dr. Death does from this point is justified because this asshole jumped him at the bell. But we're going to take a look at these 3 quick highlights from this match, and then we'll comment it on the other side.
Wow! I was going to say it was a pretty good move, him hooking the foot, but here comes, there's no question about it's a rule break and all, but this guy knows his wrestling inside out.
Oh. Wow, what a move! What a move by Dr. Death fans!
But you know what? He overdove. He went too high. He didn't mean to fly out of the ring like he did. I think it's when he did that flying body, it just went way over, and I think he lost his time and he went over. But he caught himself as he went over the top rope, so he didn't take a bad fall.
But a man that size to land on his feet, overgoing the rope, was a great move on his part. He's going to jump off the top turnbuckle here now. Body press. 1, 2. Pick them up.
Now, with that flying body press.
So I've watched Dr. Death matches since back in retroactively in the early Mid-South days, when he was just starting out. I've never really seen him do an enziguri. I've certainly never seen him do a crossbody off the top rope. But the thing that stands out to me is funny is, like, he does that deal in the corner. And yeah, anybody that knows anything, like, no, clearly he didn't mean to flip over like that. But it worked out great. He landed on his feet and he automatically went into the pose. And so Herb, who I'm assuming this is only his 3rd set of TV tapings, or 3rd show that he's ever called in his life, was like, oh, great move by Dr. Death there. He lands on his feet. And then Bruno immediately shits on, like, he overshot that. He didn't mean to go over the top rope. He's lucky he landed on his feet. And then Herb's like, well, yeah, but for a guy that size, it's still pretty impressive. He landed on his feet. Like, just killed his enthusiasm there. But, so yeah, I just thought it kind of stood out because, like I said, like, man, these matches are like paint by numbers. Like, what guy's going to do. Like, if you watch 10 of those Spivey squashes, they're all going to look just like that one, except the referee counting when nobody's covering. Hopefully that would be a one-off. That wouldn't be a running thing in Spivey matches. But this one definitely kept me on my toes. I wasn't expecting to see any of that. But, of course, we'd eventually get around to the, stampede, slam them in the turnbuckles 2 times, and slam the shit out of them. And, by the way, that looks like that absolutely sucked to get rammed. I mean, he runs in there at a pretty good clip and just, bam, like rams them into both turnbuckles. I know that had to suck. I would have hated that. But
maybe we'll see Lucha Doc return.
oh, Stevie the Dragon Steamboat there whipping out the crossbody.
Muerte Medico will return later.
And so then we had a DeBeers promo. We're talking about respect. We're talking about Nelson Mandela. Things wrestling fans are all about, especially in 1990. Right on the tip of their tongues. Like, I've been waiting for somebody to address this Nelson Mandela situation on professional wrestling, and Bobby Heenan just haven't touched it yet on primetime, so here we are. That's about all I got on the promo for Colonel DeBeers for right now. We'll get to the rest later, but you got anything?
My wife looked up from her book and went, "What the fuck is this?" So that was probably the highlight of her wrestling watching for the year.
Hey, that was probably the highlight of anybody's reaction to a Colonel DeBeers promo in the history of his career. If you emailed Ed Wiskowski, he'd be like, "Got some heat on that one, brother." That's what I'm talking about. Somebody got it. He'd send your wife a thank you card for putting him over. So then,
my notes on that was that promo sucked, much like the match is going to. So
yeah, I was just like, DeBeers promo, blah, respect Mandela, blah blah blah. Was my exact notes. So then we've got David Sammartino taking on a jobber named Houdini,
who I was hoping would make the main event disappear.
Well, spoiler alert. Every time Houdini wrestles, Herb Abrams makes that joke that he hopes somebody makes him disappear. I've had to watch ahead, and I've seen some things. But, boy.
You just said that like a fucking Vietnam vet. I've seen some things.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got UWF PTSD. And you're all going to have it along with us if you keep following along. But we hope you do. We hope you're having fun. Like I say, these shows get better each week as we start to notice some of the trends here and begin to make fun of them. And we're going to start adding more clips as we go along. One fun aspect of this match, I don't know if you caught it. I don't know how loud you had your sound turned up. I didn't really notice it except for when I had headphones on editing the commercials out. David Sammartino comes out to the ring to Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe. Yes, that song. Dun, 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 that girl is Poison. That is what David Sammartino came out to multiple times. This wasn't just a one-off.
That makes perfect sense.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I was just like, I was hoping Bruno would comment on it. What is this song he's coming out to? The girl is Poison. Where's the girl? The only real note I had on this is everything Houdini does looks weak as shit. But David Sammartino cranked on that figure 4 harder than I've ever seen anybody crank on a figure 4 in my life. He really put some enthusiasm into that figure 4.
Please tell me you're mocking, because that figure 4 was the shits.
I'm not saying it was a good figure 4, but I'm just saying watching Greg Valentine and Ric Flair and all the folks that have ever done figure 4s, I've never seen anybody just spastically like... Like, I mean, everything in that match had been weak and just lackluster, but he locks that figure 4 in like the fate of the goddamn world relies on him making Houdini submit to that figure 4. That just stood out to me. Like, why did he get this burst of like, I gotta really sell this figure 4 here? But on his end, and what made it stand out, he's cranking on it so hard, like he's trying to make Andre the Giant tap out to a figure 4. But meanwhile, Houdini's just like he didn't wail, he didn't like, because I mean, you've seen people sell like Valentine and Flair's figure 4. He barely sold it. He's just like, okay, let's go. And I was like, what the hell was that about? Like, that was way overdone. But I mean, I wasn't putting it over. I'm just saying that was like the most animated anything of that whole match was the damn figure 4. Do you have any other notes about the match in general, or David
Sure
Sammartino.
don't.
So what have we learned so far, fans? David Sammartino can have a decent match if it's against Cactus Jack. Against other people, not so much. So next we go to Captain Lou's Corner with Dangerous Dan Spivey.
Looked like Albano was on downers for this interview.
It was so weird. All of them are just so weird. The great thing, and this isn't through editing, we go from Captain's Corner with Dangerous Dan Spivey immediately to what? A fucking promo from Dangerous Dan Spivey. Because,
wait a minute. We got to go back to Captain's Corner. Because Spivey's back in the Beefcake collection.
Yeah.
And he's fucking channeling Hogan in this promo. Like, he's like, whoa, and including my favorite line, which I'm going to have to read this, so forgive me for looking at my notes like I'm Albano from the earlier promo. I'm a mean guy, and I like hurting people, so I just ran his head right into that wall in New York. Like, that's fucking poetry right there, man. I mean, he was doing that in the Hogan cadence while wearing Beefcake's wardrobe, so, I mean, it was...
Well, I picked up a little bit of Beefcake's voice in him more than I ever have before. He had the Hogan cadence, but his voice, I mean, if I closed my eyes, I would almost picture Beefcake. And then when I opened them and I'd seen those clothes, I'd have been like, wait a minute, is that Beef? No, it's Dan Spivey. What's going on?
Look, if you're going to close your eyes and picture sweaty men in Beefcake's clothing, you do that on your own time.
Well, at least though, his Brutus Beefcake outfit wasn't the kind with the fishnet all the way down the side with half his ass hanging out. He at least was classy enough not to do that.
But yes, so then we went to another Spivey promo, which also they may have been chemically enhanced like the Dr. Death promos.
He immediately started ranting about being the number one contender to the non-existent heavyweight title that at this point has never even been mentioned. There's been no talk of a title, which shocks me. That and that promo made me think that because my wife was actually in the room when I watched through this the first time. I wasn't really making notes. I was just kind of some of these I see more than once. I'm ashamed to admit because I just kind of speed through them and then later I go back and make notes. But when he said that, I said, they haven't mentioned a title, but I'm like, but usually these marked promoter types, like their main objective right out of the gate is to have a big fancy belt and crown a champion coming right out of the gate. So I'm kind of shocked that it took nearly a year or at least 8 or 9 months to crown a champion. But something else to consider though, in 1990, you couldn't just pull a belt out of your ass. There wasn't all these replica belts and all this shit. You had to commission one to get made, and that took some time to get a real wrestling belt made. So I can only assume that was the holdup, or else, Herb would have been wearing it on the initial episode. And and then Spivey would have won it, went to Japan, and not be heard from for 4 years. But that's another story for another day.
Oh God! Now this.
Now, once we double down on Spivey promos, and we're all jazzed up from the natural enthusiasm and charisma of Dangerous Dan Spivey, we go to Chief Jay Strongbow in a promo. Now, I've done some. Apparently, I read it in the book and just completely forgot. So then I started doing some research, and then what I found had been pulled from Jonathan's book, which we forgot to plug at the beginning, but we will plug at the end. It is right there behind Bob through the entire podcast. Tortured Ambition, the story of Herb Abrams and the UWF, now available on Amazon. You can go to tinyurl.com/UWF podcast, and the link is in the top right-hand corner. Make sure to order one and make sure and tell them you heard about it here on the Fury Cast, if you will. But Chief Jay Strongbow is a guy who's not, ironically, he's not Chief Jay Strongbow. He wrestled in California independence, if you will, as Chief Jay Strongbow Jr., and they were doing these tapings in California, so that all kind of adds up. But for whatever reason, Herb decided to drop the junior and just refer to him as Chief Jay Strongbow. And you can tell it kind of Like, Bruno's not exactly comfortable with it, but he didn't really know how to handle it, so he just calls him Chief J Strongbow. But like you can tell, he kind of wants to, add something. Like, okay, Chief J Strongbow, but not Chief J Strongbow. From what I understood, from what I read last night or whenever it was I was studying up on this, Chief J Strongbow Jr. never actually met Chief J Strongbow, which, I mean, I understand, a lot of times kids don't meet their fathers, I mean, he was a wrestler. He was traveling around, they may have never crossed paths or warpaths or whatever Herb Abrams would say that would be totally inappropriate about that. But moving forward, we're going to continue to just call him Chief J Strongbow, but just know that it's not the original Chief J Strongbow. Not that he was anything to write home about, if we're being honest. But, but he's just like his alleged father. He's an Italian guy playing an Indian not very well. Two highlights of this promo for me was he said he's going to bring War Dance Fever to the UWF, which to me sounds like would be a great tag team of him and Disco Inferno at some point. I'm surprised we didn't see that on Nitro in the waning years. And he finished it, and my wife also commented. The two things she commented on was the other one was this promo when he goes, "Please come out and support me." She's like, "God, that sounded pathetic and desperate, did it not?" I'm like, yeah, but I think he pretty well knows what kind of enthusiasm this gimmick's going to be met with. So it's probably good that he said please. Because, I mean, even in 1990, I don't think War Dance Fever was fixing to sweep Reseda, California.
He better hope it's contagious. So.
That's just I'm sorry. That's funny though. I wish like Herb would have got like T-shirts made like and Blair would have been like, "Mr. Wonderful, B. Brian Blair, Dan Spivey, and the brand new Chief J Strongbow War Dance Fever T-shirt." Like, because if Blair could have said that with any buzz and said that with enthusiasm, like that guy is. They need to put him on the shopping network right now because that's money.
I can only assume his wrestling will be better than his promo.
Ooh, well, that's a big leap you're making. But then again, when the promo's that bad, you have to think, well, they're putting him on television. Surely to God, he can wrestle better than that promo was. But
I'm going to be wrong.
We'll see, because he'll be in action coming up real soon. I don't remember if it's episode 3 or episode 4, but he will be in the ring very soon. So now we go to B. Brian Blair taking on Tim Spitball Patterson. And another interesting note, don't know if you caught this, but B. Brian Blair comes out to "You Shook Me All Night Long" by AC/DC.
Because that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, why would he not, honestly? All right, there's a few things to talk about in this match, but let's just address the elephant in the room right out of the gate, though. Did you catch Herb's explanation for why Spitball Patterson is called Spitball Patterson?
If I did, I've forgotten, so I'll let you take that one.
All right. I'll be Herb Abrams, you be Bruno. And all you have to do is say why. "Hey, Bruno, you know why they call Spitball Patterson Spitball?"
No, why?
He spits a lot. That's all. That was it. No more enthusiasm than that. No more explanation than that. Bruno had no more reaction to that than you did. It was just because you're building up, because the first week you call him Spitball Patterson, you're like, why? Like, this is a big guy. He looks like he might be more impressive than Davey Meltzer or any of these other jobbers. I mean, I know when I was reading results before I ever actually saw it, and I'd see Spitball Patterson, I pictured some little shrimp of a guy, that's just getting killed. And when I finally saw a VHS, I'm like, that dude's like, why are they calling him Spitball Patterson? He's freaking huge compared to the other guys. So when he had the first match, there's no explanation. And this time I'm watching and Herb goes, "Hey, Bruno, you know why they call him Spitball Patterson?" I'm like, I want to know. I'll lean in the screen like, this should be interesting. Would he throw spitballs at somebody in class when he was in school? Is that where he got the nickname all the way back in like junior high? He spits a lot. Herb, you piece of shit. Like,
Why are we watching this show, Gene?
I don't know, because it's I guess alcoholism and other self-destructive things are a lot more damaging and at least to our health. This is just damaging to our psyche and our love of our alleged love of professional wrestling. So beyond that, this is where we start having some more plot holes, for lack of a better term, where the logic and psychology and kayfabe just really start falling apart. So Dan Spivey comes to ringside because we've established by tearing up the T-shirt earlier and the things that happened last week in the initial double countout in that wild brawl that we had last week in the main event. Dan Spivey doesn't like Brian Blair, so he comes to ringside. Referee Jesse Hernandez doesn't have a problem with this. Apparently, he assumes or knows that Dan Spivey has a manager's license because that was the old shtick. You know, the managers had a manager's license. Spivey's out there, no problems. He trips Brian Blair right in front of the referee. It's cool. We don't say nothing about it. The announcers pointed out, why are they letting him be out there? Why is this referee letting him trip people? But there was a question whether he saw the first one. Maybe he was standing at an angle. Maybe he didn't see it. We could turn our brain off for a second and go, okay, he didn't see that. The second time that he trips him is literally right in front of his face. As the fans are chanting, Spivey, Spivey, Spivey. Bruno deducts that maybe they're chanting Spivey because they hate him and they just want to annoy him. Maybe they'll get on his nerves. Maybe. So they repeat the Cactus Bulldog spot, and Blair and Spitball Patterson get it right. So there's a thumbs up for old Spitball. And then Brian Blair applies the Scorpion Deathlock as his finish. And another spoiler, if you continue to watch the Universal Wrestling Federation, every goddamn time that Brian Blair applies the Scorpion is like the first fucking time. It's like he's never seen it happen before. It's like it's like improv comedy. Like somebody in the fan goes, Scorpion! And he puts his leg there. He's like, wait, how you do this again? Like it goes this, no, this, okay. Step this way, and then he finally turns it over, and you know,
like a shitty bar band trying to play Freebird.
Yeah, and he wins. Yay! As the fans cheer for Spivey.
So now we've had a Spivey match, a Spivey on Albano's show, a Spivey promo, and Spivey interfering. If this was a fucking EWR game, we'd get that email saying, you used Dan Spivey too many times on this show. Dan Spivey has lost overness from this segment.
We would get major point deductions for overexposing Dan Spivey. To the point, I almost wanted to edit the logo and put the UWF Spivey Hour.
Jesus.
But...
And then the post-match attack was the weakest power bomb I've ever seen ever. Like, he looked like he was putting fucking Blair to bed.
Yes, like it's almost like I imagine him saying he was sorry on the way down. Like, oh, I'm sorry, buddy. Okay. Oh, yeah. Are you all right? Was that all right? Was that okay? You're not hurt, are you? Okay, all right, no problem. In retrospect, it's probably good that we got all this extra Spivey. But we won't say why.
Right.
Let's just say it's probably it may be a good thing. I don't know. But as we come out of that and we're getting ready to go to break, Herb Abrams announces that coming up next, that bigot, Colonel DeBeers, takes on Portland, Oregon's Billy Jack Haynes. And so now we're ready for the main event.
Before we get there, we were going to have a discussion last week that we didn't get to, so let's touch on it briefly.
Okay.
What's the point of having all of these squash matches when we're not building to anything?
Yeah, so, you know, on WWF, WCW, you had all these squash matches every week and sometimes one main event. But the goal was for you to either A, go buy a ticket to WWF or WCW when it comes to your local town and arena, or buy that quarterly pay-per-view, because they weren't yet monthly, but there was one coming up. There was a WrestleMania or a Survivor Series or a SummerSlam or whatever coming. But UWF and IWA before it, and later the AWF and the XWF and all the WFs that came along that were just random-ass television shows. We weren't doing house shows, and if we were canceling them as quick as we fucking scheduled them. We weren't going to see a pay-per-view until June of the following year, and that's a whole other debacle. So what are we doing? I mean, so if I'm doing this to sell ads, if that's the goal, I don't know what their deal was, but from everything I read, it was, I mean, Abrams was putting this show on Sports Channel. I guess they were paying to put it on there. So, right. And I had this same discussion on a recent episode where we were talking to the guys that do the current Memphis wrestling in Memphis now. I mean, I told them, I'm like, okay, so Saturday Morning Live Memphis TV with Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett, you did the live TV, and you knew how you did on TV Monday night when you seen how many tickets you sold for the Monday night matches. You guys don't do Monday night matches. You just do a show every Saturday morning on TV. I was like, where's the win? How do you know you won? Is it strictly how many people watched? Or over time, how many people's willing to pay for ads because of how many people are watching? I don't know. But I would think that if this show simply exists as a television show, as my only goal is to get people to watch it week in and week out, I would want it to be as good as possible, which is why Monday Night Raw eventually became what it became. They dropped the squash matches and started having competitive matches because it was all about selling ad time. It was about selling pay-per-views too and right. tickets, but it was also about selling ad time because that became the thing. But like if my show becomes dreadfully predictable every week and people stop watching, then why am I putting this show on? And that's, I mean, do you have even a theory on any of that? I don't.
I can even understand having, if you bring in, like if this is Dr. Death's first week, sure, give him a squash guy so he can go in there and show everybody what he can do. Hell, even if you want to build somebody up for a couple weeks, bring in squash guys, have them kill them. For like, I mean, I'm not even a fan of the guy, but like Goldberg, you can build a guy up that way. But yeah, if you're not building, I mean, people are going to get sick of seeing that shit every week. And I mean, at the same time, I see like today's modern product where you're giving away. But again, when there's nothing to build to, I mean, like today's product, I feel like they're giving away, the shit that you're supposed to be paying to see every week, and that's not sustainable either. So I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I even feel like, I mean, we were joking about how every fucking week is a double count out or a double. I mean, you can do that a couple times to eventually build to it, but what is this product building towards? I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But
all right, folks. So I'm up against a hard out this week. Like I have to be off here in 14 minutes. So forgive me if this show ends abruptly and we don't get through everything. But we're going to try to.
Okay, let's get to the main event
very quickly. So let's just show 2 minutes here. Colonel DeBeers pre-match promo, and we'll talk about the promo and about. Pay attention to what DeBeers is saying, but more importantly, pay attention to how the announcers are handling all this, because this is going to be the crux of what we're talking about moving forward.
I think that, Billy Jack Haynes might just take some of the starch out of this, but look at this.
It appears as if he has something to say. Wait a minute, he's pointing.
He's pointing at the referee, evidently.
No, it can't be.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's not happy with the referee in this match.
What?
He's not happy with the referee.
He's a black man!
What?
Cool, listen.
I will not have a black man refereeing my matches!
I don't believe this!
He's actually said that he will not allow a black man to referee his match. Do you believe this?
Nah, this is some gall. I mean, there we go.
At this time, we're going to have to make a switch In the referee.
I have never in my years heard anything like that.
Hey, I've been around a long time. I mean, I've been around a long, long time. This guy, I mean, this is out of line. This is absolutely out of
And
line.
what right does the ring announcer have to bring in a new referee? I don't understand that.
Wait. What am I missing here? You mean they're going to change referees? I would hope not.
The ring announcer has just made an announcement that they're bringing in a new referee.
No. This is wrong. Why should he have his way here? This is absolutely wrong. No. What is this? Oh, there's somebody from the audience. Now, this is absolutely... You do not let him have his way. Who is he? Who is he to dictate who referees and who doesn't? These are... Oh, no.
Well, we see this man's prejudice come out right here on national television.
Does not matter.
I have to tell you that this is totally unacceptable from my point of view, and I don't understand how Jesse Hernandez just played into that and came in to referee this match, Bruno.
I don't care how prejudiced the man is, what his problems are. You do not let him have his way.
Okay. Welcome back to 1990. So, all right. So you couldn't do that now. The goddamn world would implode and Colonel DeBeers would be fucking set on fire. But, but, okay, that's the character. We're doing this for heat, by all accounts, for everything I've ever read. Ed Wiskowski's a decent dude. He had a lot of black friends and helped a lot of black people in wrestling. This wasn't who this guy is. It's just the character he played. So, okay. Stepping back into that time frame, we're doing this gimmick to put heat on Colonel DeBeers. Suits the character. All right, going back to what we were talking about earlier, the lack of logic, the lack of psychology, and the questionable means of how this is being handled on commentary. Depending on if you're watching this, if you're, whether or not you're a wrestler or you're a casual fan or you're a hardcore fan. I'm guessing if you're watching this shit, you're a pretty hardcore fan. You're not a casual fan. I'm guessing. But the way this all took place, what you just saw, we're spreading the heat out. All the heat is not going on Colonel DeBeers.
No.
We're passing heat to the ring announcer because there was no commissioner out there. There was no owner. There was no general manager or whatever fucking authority figures we've made in wrestling in the last 30 years since this took place. It's just the ring announcer just like, hey, this guy said he don't like the referee. Bring out another referee. And then rather than just focusing on how dare this son of a bitch not want this referee to referee because he's a black man, like how dare this fucking ring announcer just say bring another referee out? Who the fuck is this guy? Okay, so now we've put heat on the ring announcer. Jesse Hernandez comes out because I'm sure the planned spot was, okay, when the ring announcer calls for you, you need to come out and take Larry Sampson's place. So he just comes out. Who the fuck does this referee think he is to just come out here and take Larry's place? What the fuck is he doing? So now we've put heat on the referee. On top of the heat that we already put on him in the fucking Brian Blair match because he let Spivey trip somebody in front of him 2 times. Not only did I disqualify him, he never even reprimanded him. Didn't say a fucking word. He just didn't see it. So now DeBeers' heat is spread out amongst him, the ring announcer, and the referee. And I love Bruno's voice when he gets incredulous. What is this going? He turns into Jerry Lawler from fucking Raw in the Puppies days. He's like, what is he doing here, Herb? Oh my God. So we've spread the heat out amongst everybody, which is just absurd. And also, even by design, even if you take away all the stupidity of everything, you just made, based on the crowd reaction and based on the way this all was laid out, you just made Larry Sampson, the referee, your biggest babyface. Now, that's okay because behind the scenes, Larry Sampson's actually a wrestler. Larry Sampson usually wrestles. They asked him, what's his name? Bill Anderson asked him, hey, will you referee? Because we're really short on referees. When I know you usually wrestle, but would you referee? And he's like, yeah, sure. Whatever you need me to do. Colonel DeBeers, Ed Wiskowski, knows Larry Sampson because they worked together in Portland back in the day, and that's why he knew this would be a good angle for him because he's, he knows that if they need to, they can pay it off later because Larry can wrestle. So if anybody had any foresight or just the common sense to go, holy shit, this ain't what we planned, but these people now love Larry, we need to roll this. That probably could have been the only money drawing angle that UWF ever did, was having that referee come back a few weeks down the road and beat the shit out of Colonel DeBeers. We'll have to see if that's how things play out, folks. But what happened here is Billy Jack Haynes. I'm sorry to be stepping all over you and not letting you talk, but I'm going to try to power through this, and then we'll let you comment on the backside. Billy Jack Haynes comes out, and he cuts a quick promo to get over with the crowd. And, hey, bring the black guy back. I don't care if he's black, And so people are like, okay, that was kind of...
Because meth head looking Billy Jack Haynes strikes me as a quality fighter.
Yeah. Herb Abrams throws in the comment that I'm surprised that DeBeers isn't offended by Billy Jack's ring attire because he's got black tights and black boots on. He even points out, too, that he's surprised that Colonel DeBeers is okay with this referee because he's Hispanic. And as someone else has pointed out at one point, we're all surprised that he's okay with a Jewish man and an Italian man announcing the match. He should have just sent all of them out of there. Get rid of the announcers, get rid of the referee, get rid. I'm offended by all of it, but he was only upset with the referee. So they point out that nobody tried. That once Billy Jack said he's okay with having Larry be the referee, Herb points out, well, nobody tried to bring him back. Nobody tried to switch it back out. So now that's just putting more heat on just everyone else involved. Whoever, I guess since the ring announcer had the authority to tell him to leave, he could have had the authority to bring him back. But again, I mean, we haven't acknowledged at any point up to now that Herb is the promoter. They did randomly show some guy over here on a set of headphones who it seemed like Herb didn't remember his name. He goes, hey, there's the commissioner, Adams, over there. That was next week. I'm getting ahead, but he does say that at one point. Then Herb pulls out this jewel. I'm surprised that Colonel DeBeers will wear that black patch over his eye with it being black and all. I stand corrected that Davey Meltzer had the worst drop kick in history because Billy Jack Haynes come in a very close second with the drop kick that he gave in this match. And all of this crap going on, you're thinking, all right, well, this has got to build to something. What did it build to, folks? What did it build to, Bob? Tell us.
Double count out.
Of course. So we're 2 weeks in, 2 main events, 2 double countouts. And again, we're not building to house shows. We're not building to a pay-per-view. We just want you to watch this show every week. But we've sent the message 2 weeks in a row that you're going to get a double countout. But next week, we have a chance to redeem ourselves because next week, Dr. Death Steve Williams takes on Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. And with these two guys going at it, there's no way in hell that we're going to have a non-decision. Somebody's going to win next week, Bob. What else do you have to add about what we saw tonight and what we potentially are going to see next week?
Not going to have a non-finish next week, are we?
No way.
I'd buy that for $1.
No way you would do it 3 weeks in a row.
All I'll add for that last match was it was fucking terrible.
I will say it was terrible, but it was not as terrible as I thought it was going to be going in, as far as they did a little more than I thought they would. They didn't do a lot or did anything great, but there was just more bumps and more movement than I thought there would be. But it still sucked to dick.
I mean, my last trip to the dentist wasn't quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. But, Anyway, what was your match of the show?
Oh, Lord. Wow.
I'll go first. Even with
ahead.
the fucking terrible sunset flip, I'm going to say that Orndorff and the Black Knight were the best match on the show, as bad as that is.
Yeah. I guess I have to agree. Like, I would almost say, since they pulled off the Bulldog out of the corner, that Brian Blair and Spitball Patterson had a pretty decent match, but with all the fuckery of Spivey interfering and the referee not acknowledging it, and then Brian Blair doing his first ever Scorpion for the finish, looking awkward as fuck. I can't vote for that. So, but I'm not going to steal your answer 2 weeks in a row. So I'm going to have to say, the highlight of the show has to be back-to-back Dan Spivey promos with Captain Lou's Corner and just
we did forget to mention, after the main event, there is another coked up Dr. Death promo.
Oh, yeah. How could we forget? Because you got to send everybody home happy. I mean,
and it was my highlight of the week again.
We're a little chapped about the finish, but hey, we get to see coked out Dr. Death again.
And it was quite fantastic again.
And we know next week we're going to get to see him take on Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff to pay off all this friction they've had. And we know that there's going to be a winner. We just can't wait to see who it's going to be. Who do you think it's going to be? Who do you think would win?
And I pick Orndorff.
I pick Dr. Death.
It's going to be a shoot, because shoots are the thing with him.
Turn to a shoot with the Brandon Bull, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff taking on the big football playing Oklahoma Sooner. By God, Dr. Death Steve Williams. He ain't going to give us no double count out. By God.
Hellfire and brimstone. Speaking of you picking Dr. Death, it's time for us to reveal the palate cleanser for the week, and I believe you have a Dr. Death match.
The palate cleanser of the week, and I'm not claiming this is going to be a 4-star classic or anything, but I kind of picked it on purpose to illustrate a fact. This match is from WCW in January of the same year, 1990, and it's Dr. Death Steve Williams taking on the unpredictable Cactus Jack. And I just think it really illustrates how even in the same basic time frame, the two of the same people in a completely different environment with different bookers and different circumstances can have a completely different match. Because I promise you, when you watch this match, and it's going to be in the description, it's going to be in the playlist over at our tinyurl.com/UWF podcast. This is definitely not the match you would have saw these two have for Herb Abrams and the UWF. Cactus Jack takes some crazy bumps during this match, even though it's like a WCW Pro or main event or one of those jobber shows. It's a hell of a match, and Cactus Jack is already showing signs of being something very different. So check it out. Let us know what you think. And next week, it'll be tag back to Bob, and we'll see what palate cleanser he has. Even though we probably aren't going to need a palate cleanser, because that main event next week is going to be awesome.
Hey, does your match end in a double count out?
It does not. Spoiler alert, there is a clean finish. I just won't tell you who.
Unlike
it's
next
1990 WCW. I think you can probably guess, but don't tell them. Make them go watch it. And we will see you here next week for another incredible, wild, and woolly episode of the UWF Fury Cast.